The mission of the Father McKenna Center is to work with men who struggle with homelessness, to provide them basic human services, and to support their growth towards stability, productivity, and meaning in life.
Homeless people are not a lot different than everybody else. They just have fallen into circumstances that eventually got out of their control.
I actually got involved with some people that was counterfeiting money, and I ended up going to prison for that. And I just got up here from North Carolina February of this year. And so when I got here, I was homeless then as well. And that's how I'm in the shelter now.
Actually, I became homeless because I got incarcerated and did my time. When I got released, they released me straight onto the streets, didn't give me no assistance, and just pretty much said, hey, fend for yourself, and that's what I've been doing. So, 33 and ex-con, just trying to get my life together.
For about 12, 13 months, I stayed at a homeless shelter in Washington, D.C., Adams Place, Northeast. I never thought I'd be homeless, but as most people in the country right now living paycheck to paycheck, I was.
There are 4 or 5 root causes of homelessness. Among them are mental health, and that's the biggest one. But you also have troubles around addiction, drug and alcohol addiction. A third is unemployment. Some of these guys truly are unemployed. 4th cause for the guys that we deal with is incarceration. And the 5th major cause of homelessness that we encounter here is dissolution of family.
Mental illness is huge here. There are about 60% of guys who come here for services or have some form of mental illness.
Issues of depression, bipolar, these things can just exacerbate homelessness.
You can see I was basically dysfunctional from a child, as a child, and even as a man today. And so, again, it's prevalent in this environment because we don't really understand just how deep a mental illness is.
I've seen guys deteriorate because they're homeless. I've seen the pressure of being homeless being too much for some guys, and they crumble under it. And a year or 2 after guys become homeless, he can be severely mentally ill. I also have seen many men become homeless because they are mentally ill.
Mental health care is the #1 resource needed by the homeless. The Affordable Care Act, for all of its troubles and problems, has afforded men at the bottom of the barrel the opportunity to get the mental health care they need. They can't afford going to a psychiatrist or a psychologist. They can't afford the medication.
The Affordable Care Act is beneficial, is absolutely beneficial to people that are homeless. There's no question in my mind, it's essential. If it's stopped, then we will be devastated. disgraceful to be in the most powerful country in the world, but yet have all these people displaced. It just doesn't make sense.
We know that having people live out of doors is wrong, and that there might be something very wrong with our society as a consequence, and so we don't want to deal with that.
We can't press a button, blink our eyes and put an app on our phone to make it go away, because it's going to be here. It's not a big topic in Congress.
In my lifetime, anything this country has purposed itself to do, it's done. That tells me that this country has not yet, from top to bottom, purposed itself to end homelessness.
Just gotta give us a chance. How are we supposed to change our lives if we're always degraded and pushed away and snubbed?
Well, I was at a comment, what's the holdup? We're in a country where people of all race and creed, and however they rich or poor, everything should be addressed, and we need to have our issue addressed as well.
I get blessed every day to wake up, and the rest of it's just to survive. You know what I mean? Just treat me like a person.
One of the struggles for the homeless is that they become invisible. When we ignore them, we're disrespecting them. They're still human beings. And if we can treat them as human beings, it's a whole step forward.
The Digital Literacy Club at Eastern Middle School wanted to investigate what's it like to live in Silver Spring, Maryland. We began thinking about how our community is designed, and to find out more, we interviewed Robert Cronenberg from the Montgomery County Planning Department.
One of our roles here is to look into the future, and we look into the future talking to residents that have been here for a long time, but also we look at other areas around the world. Montgomery County itself is worldwide, so when people look like we do, when we look at precedents and we look at things that happen in other parts of the world and the country, people are looking at us. Not only are we more active as a commission from planning, but we have the residents are extremely more active. And there's a process in place that allows people like you and your parents and friends to come in and tell us what they like or what they don't like about what's going on in their community. We and our planning board listen to that quite a bit, because sometimes we can put all kinds of things in these plans, but we don't live in all these neighborhoods. And so I think what's important is that we hear from people that live in the neighborhoods. When this plan was approved in 2000, one of the things that came out of this was we really don't have a whole lot of green space in downtown Silver Spring.
Recognizing a problem, Montgomery County Planning acted on the community's need for more green space. Using software such as Google SketchUp, the planning department works with developers to find creative solutions for integrating green space into future designs.
If you look at Silver Spring, most people will tell you, wow, this is a big deal. It's changed dramatically over the last 15, 16 years, 20 years.
And we, the Digital Literacy Club at Eastern Middle School, agree.
And we are very excited to be a part of the future of Silver Spring.
Have you ever had a black male teacher before?
Black male teacher, wait, let me think. I've had Mr. Williams.
I remember having a black male teacher in first grade.
I mean, I've never had one.
I think I've only had two. I've only had two throughout my entire experience in high school.
In all 9 years that I've been in MCPS, I've had 2 black male teachers.
I have never had a black male teacher.
And I guess it is like a problem.
I think that it's important that we start having more
black male role model. I think it is an issue because the students are so diverse, so the teachers should be too.
As a student, I kind of feel alienated because I can't really relate to my teachers as much as other people can. Like, I don't know if they've gone through the same experiences that I have, and I can't say it's hurt me, but it would have been more beneficial if I had, a role model to look up to.
I felt like I was isolated and on an island before the bond project. So I've been in a number of different schools where I was the only black male teacher. I'm the only black male teacher, certified teacher on this staff here. Although I'm an assistant principal, we don't have any black male teachers.
Being here at Blair, there is a small but tight network of African American and Latino males. But there are many buildings within the county where there is only one African American male, and in some where there are none. That's an issue. I knew immediately when I heard about bond that it was something that I wanted to be involved in because it's part of my life's work, not just to teach, but to also make sure that we have educators that reflect how our student population looks.
3 years ago, I believe, Dr. Inger Swimson pulled a few of us together and said, hey, I have this idea. We need to figure out a way to support some of our teachers of color.
BOND is an acronym and it stands for Building Our Network of Diversity. And it was a program started about 2 or 3 years ago here in Montgomery County.
We don't have a diverse enough workforce. We need to figure out ways to do that. So we need to be able to recruit people to come in. We also need to be able to retain people once they get in.
During our kickoff meeting, we had individuals who had less than 3 years of teaching align themselves with veteran educators. In short, there's supposed to be a weekly conversation that takes place and at least one face-to-face per month conversation. And the goal is simply to see how things are going, to see if there are any questions that need to be asked, just to know that there's someone who is supporting them.
For those that are teaching in isolation, they feel this isolation of being the only one there. And I'm trying to reach out to them particularly, to bring them on board, to let them know that, hey, you're not alone, and we understand that by being on this island by yourself, that you're important where you are. What you do is of value, and we want to make sure that we develop a support network around them.
There are a lot of teachers in Montgomery County and throughout the nation that are teaching in isolation. In Montgomery County, 12.5% of all teachers are black, while 21.3% of the student population is black, according to data collected in the 2012 through 2013 school year. In comparison, 75.7% of MCPS teachers are white, while 33% of students are white. Clearly, there is a lack of representation within MCPS, but this is also reflected nationwide. Only 1.81% of teachers in the U.S. are black males, while black males make up 7.39% of the student population. White females make up 27.38% of the student population, yet 63.02% of teachers are white females.
When we have male educators of color in the classroom, it's not just for those students who look like them. I think they benefit maybe a little bit more than others, but I think every student benefits from a diverse teaching corps.
In fact, a recent study performed by Hua Yu Sebastian Chung found that students of all races, white, Latino, black, and Asian, all preferred teachers of color over white teachers. The study surveyed 1,770 6th through 9th grade students on many different aspects of the teacher's abilities, including how well the teacher managed the classroom, supported students, and challenged them. Chung thinks that this preference may come from the fact that teachers of color can use their unique experiences to connect to more students and to address important issues in the classroom. Despite these findings, there are still fewer men of color in teaching positions. But why?
The problem is, how do you encourage young men to understand that education is a viable profession?
We're also trying to do some citizenship sort of pieces in the community so that some younger males of color who aren't of age yet can start to see teaching as a viable option a viable career path.
How do you encourage individuals to spend 4 years in college, to maybe take out loans for college, to go into a profession where they feel as though their earnings are not comparable to what their peers are who have gone through those same 4 years and paid those same tuition rates? You really have to understand that education is a calling. Education is about social change. It's about being able to tell a particular narrative or story that may not exist within the schoolhouse without your contribution.
An article published by Dr. Ivory Toldson and Dr. Chance Lewis found that only 23% of black males who completed education programs actually entered the teaching force, compared to 27% of white males, 41% of black females, and 42% of white females. In order to fix this disparity, they suggest that potential teachers should be made aware of the impact that they could have on students as a male of color. The bond program aims to do just that, and more.
There are circumstances that only people in my perspective, only people in my shoes can really empathize with. And it's helped me see that there are other people here in the district.
And we have incredible conversations where when we close the door, we make sure there's nobody listening. Because I have to give him the down on what's going on here. It's stuff only we can talk about. It's made me realize that there's a need for us to be here teaching. But more importantly, there's a need for us to develop a support network.
Our students deserve to see many different individuals deliver the information to them that they receive every day. And when we talk about, the world that we live in, which is growing to be more and more diverse, I think we need to make sure that our teaching staff becomes diverse as well.
When you don't see a reflection of yourself like in your teachers, then I feel like you don't think of yourself as, oh, I can be a teacher when I grow up. You don't see yourself as that in the future. And that kind of like closes gaps for you. And so, like when you're growing up, you won't think, oh, I had a really nice teacher that reminded me, related to me when I was growing up. I want to be just like them. You don't really have that moment.
It really gave me a sense of belonging. Other people understand me. As Brian Cadogan, one of our members, said, as some of the people in his building, those folks can hear him, but they can't feel him. And I felt like this is a place where people feel us.
I have faced racial inequality.
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 We have faced racial inequality.
Racial inequality has threatened minorities since the very founding of our nation. Our country was built on the backs of the American slave trade, and discriminatory policies have kept minorities at a disadvantage ever since. While some believe that racial inequality was eliminated with the Civil Rights Movement and the Voting Rights Act of the 1960s, that is simply not the case. Race-based discrimination is ever present in our society, from our school systems to our workforce. Racial inequality and what we can do to reduce it is the most urgent issue for President Trump to discuss in 2017.
The difference between 2015 and 1965 for millions of African Americans is that in 1965 they knew in a very specific way about the existence of racial oppression because there was a national civil rights movement and there was a movement for social justice.
If we can get to a place in our society where we see beyond race and ethnicity and religion and gender, etc., we're going to be a lot better.
The lack of equal opportunity for minorities' educational experience feeds into the racial achievement gap. Blacks and Hispanics are more likely to receive lower grades, score lower on standardized tests, drop out of high school, and they are less likely to enter and complete college. Black Americans are suspended and expelled at 3 times the rate of white students. They make up 16% of school enrollment, but account for 32% of students who receive in-school suspensions, 42% of students who receive multiple out-of-school suspensions, and 34% of students who are expelled.
A quarter of high schools with the highest percentage of Latino and African American population, do not offer the same courses such as Algebra 2 and Chemistry. On average, schools serving more minority populations have less experienced, lower paid teachers who are less likely to be certified.
I think it was always very important for students to see a variety of individuals and not just certain individuals in certain roles.
The achievement gap is an ongoing cycle traveling along generations because the person receiving subpar education will grow up to be at lower standards than their white peers and most likely will become a parent to a child that will not have the proper support system. By the age of 2, less black children show accomplishments in development skills, receptive vocabulary, early counting, math, numbers, and shapes. The achievement gap in most cases snowballs into inequality in the economy because minorities are not receiving equal pay due to the significant gap in educational quality compared to white people. There are 3 main areas of race-based diminished economic prosperity: less opportunities, predetermined prejudice, and a pay gap. Racial inequality in terms of economics, just like education, is a cycle. Minorities tend to have high levels of poverty, which can lead to less educational opportunities.
The current gap between blacks and whites has reached its highest point since 1989.
African Americans and Latinos only have 6 and 7 cents respectively of net worth compared to every $1 in wealth held by the typical white family. African Americans, Asian Americans, and Latinos lost more than half of their net worth as a result of the subprime mortgage crisis and the Great Recession, and they still have yet to recover.
According to the 2013 census, the unemployment rate was 37% for young adult black males. It was 10% for white males of the same age range. This is partially because more employers are looking for college-educated persons. Communities with primarily minorities often have less resources, especially in education. Due to this disparity, only 18.7% of African Americans have a bachelor's degree or higher. Less education means less of a chance of getting a job, which leads to high unemployment rates.
There is a stigma surrounding minority communities. They are stereotyped as lazy and unwilling to work. Employers are not necessarily the prejudiced ones. On the other hand, they are worried their customers or clients might be racially biased and they might lose business. But what can be done to resolve the issue of racial inequality in our society? To fix the issue of racial inequality, we must turn to legislative action and social initiatives. Reform in education, employment, housing, and criminal justice systems is vital to reducing the presence of racial inequality.
Well, we have to understand our history as a nation. Our nation was set up on a bedrock of white supremacy. That was the government that was established in this country.
The Fair Employment Protection Act, which was introduced in 2012 but never enacted, would remove barriers to workers seeking class action lawsuits. The national government should also increase fines against discriminatory employers and increase enforcement power to support the anti-discrimination laws already in place. Expanding housing vouchers to every family below the 30th percentile would allow them to spend 30% of their income on rent, an anti-poverty and anti-discrimination effort of which the cost would be minimal.
Finally, reform in the criminal justice system is vital to reduce the presence of racial inequality. People of color are disproportionately targeted by police and imprisoned, which leads to health, family life, employment, and political power disadvantages. The African Americans have a 30% higher chance of being arrested than white suspects. That Black and Latino defendants have a disadvantage compared to whites in terms of plea offers, pretrial detention, and prison sentences. Fixing the criminal justice system to reduce the clear biases via proper training and more severe consequences for prejudiced officials will help the minority communities face less discrimination.
Do we want to be a multiracial democracy in the truest sense of the word? Or are we going to keep structures that perpetuate and enable white supremacy? Racism is not just a problem of people thinking one way or another about a person. It's a problem of institutions. The way the institutions are set up to benefit some and to disenfranchise or not benefit others. When you change public policy, you are changing laws and you're changing the policies so that the conditions for inequality no longer exist.
I have faced racial inequality.
Homeless people. We often think of them as someone wearing ripped clothes, holding a sign in a can, while sitting on the corner of the street. But have you ever thought that they could be a student? They might be an honor student, because studying is their only distraction away from their problems. They might be the student that's always late to first period because they had a 2-hour commute just to get to school. They might even be a slacker because they care more about working to support their family instead of school. Unfortunately, people don't focus too much on homelessness, let alone a homeless student. In this video, we'll be talking to those who face this problem head-on to reveal the harsh reality of what a homeless student can go through.
There's a stigma attached to homelessness, which is unnecessary. It's similar to a stigma attached to mental illness. You won't have kids coming forward and saying, oh, my parent is dealing with mental illness. They won't come forward and say, I'm homeless. Homeless students are like any other student. They have struggles. They don't know if they're going to be in the same location. They don't know if they'll have access to technology for their schoolwork. Their time that it takes to come and go from school can be extended. So I would say the difficulty for our homeless students is that they're dealing with stability.
Homeless students, just because they're homeless, have such natural distractions. They might be wondering where are they going to sleep tomorrow or the following week. You know, do they have enough food or things like that. So I think the main disparity is just the distractions that come from the fact that their housing is so unstable.
Definitely the summer provides challenges for a homeless student.
Homelessness is a big issue in Montgomery County, and the families need so much support. So it really, I mean, it's a group effort between county agencies and the school system to really make sure that, you know, both the physical needs, the food and the shelter, but also the emotional and the learning needs that come with that. So it's really a partnership, and I think we do it pretty well with our county partners. Homeless students are immediately given free and reduced lunch so that food at school is not an issue.
If there's a snow day and the student doesn't have food at home, then they probably wouldn't eat. They are actually in hotels or in apartments that are set aside to help families. But those are temporary. And it's that question of always being moved from one place to another.
My mother, sister, and I slept in one bed. My dad slept on a small couch, and my brother slept on a lazy boy chair.
In the state of Maryland, there is a tuition waiver. All homeless students would get their tuition waived at all Maryland public colleges and universities, and then additional grants would cover room and board. The requirements are strict. Students have to prove that they are homeless. It has to be documented because there's a lot of money involved.
If you're homeless, your life is kind of in a disarray. So if we can help you by keeping you in the school where you have familiarity and relationships, we try to do that.
That is different going through this than just hearing about it. You never experienced being homeless. It is worse than hearing about it or watching a movie about it. You are in it. There are a lot of kids going through it. Thank you.
The burden of supporting homeless students has been put on the shoulders of public schools. Not only does it affect the homeless students themselves, but it can affect society. It's important that President-elect Trump and Congress get more involved with this issue. Otherwise, how do they expect America to advance?
start for this one?
Yes, please. Actually, can I also get a lettuce roll?
Okay, sure. With shrimp or with irrigation crab? Which one?
Shrimp.
Okay. Name is Nobuko. Nobuko. I came from Japan. It's part of Kyushu Island, Miyazaki Prefecture. Yeah, that's why my store's name is Hinata. It's my hometown's old name. It's like a very traditional name. So Hinata, but that means is sunshine. So I'm gonna keep that name. Customer tell us many things, new stuff, or just like nutrition is good for the health. So I learn many things from our customers. So then I just try to what they needed. Then I just take it up for their company, just Japanese trading company. Then I find it. Then customers they saw that stuff, so they look so happy. Then they makes me so happy also. That's why it's my life. It's very happy. He making the sushi, the Japanese traditional sushi. He making every day. So that one also the customer they looking for the traditional Japanese sushi. Then they also happy. Then my husband very happy to do making for the traditional Japanese sushi. Especially like a miso paste. It's like a fermented for stuff for the cooking stuff like also natto or soy sauce. That one is very traditional Japanese for cooking sauce. So that means many customers asking. We have many different kinds of soy sauce. Also miso paste. So they're looking for the organic, also low sodium, whatever they want. We have to have that one. And after opening it, he wanted to try to come to here, but unfortunately he's passed away. So, but my husband's side, they came, their parents came to the, they're so happy to, see my store. So then also, they don't pay anything, but so glad. So I'm so glad also because no damage for them, also no damage for us. Just we started just small business. So is my niece came to here, then just a summer break. They helped 3 girls. They helped for our store, but it was so fun. Then also they just study English also like me. So every day is many customer coming. Then they just help for everything for serving the sushi and also everything the packing for their stuff. Just they really enjoyed that experience in United States. She was 15. She wanna be professional. She moved to Houston Ballet Academy. Yeah, because what, I didn't do it and I don't know nothing about the ballet. But one customer, for Christmas present when she was 2 years old, customer present to my daughter is a tutu. But now is she is a professional ballet dancer. She don't have any much picture because that one is raw. It's a professional company. They cannot show the picture. No free. Then also DVD or something like that. They cannot sell right now. So that means I had to go to watch her performance. I learn many things. 10 people, 10 different, personality. But I learn many things. I have to do this customer is do like this. This customer is different, so they have to do different parts. Then also around here is many different countries. People here it's for business and also a government or something like that. I learn many different kind of culture I can learn here. So very happy to hear.
Stayed on your conscience.
I'm just really scared. I'm really upset.
Personally, I'm really shocked.
I just don't know what's gonna happen.
So I found out that Trump won,
by waking up at 2 in the morning to the sound of my sister having a panic attack in my mom's bed.
Well, so I've been a Trump supporter since the first day, since the beginning. I'm a Republican, and I was expecting this result.
I'm just disappointed that there's such a stigma against women in power in this country.
I'm scared now. I don't know what I'm gonna do when he gets inaugurated.
I had to tell my 7-year-old sister, she had tears in her eyes that no, we don't actually have women in the White House. We won't have that. We actually have someone that represents the opposite of that. And when I woke up, I don't think I truly woke up because I was scrolling down social media, Facebook, Instagram, trying to find out if it was a hoax or.
I don't know. I'm honestly still in shock. It's not like I didn't really see it coming, but it's still really shocking that it happened. I guess I'm scared for myself. I'm also scared for other people.
The corner deli owner tell me hurry up and buy. If everybody is somebody, tell me who am I? The same figure who came from Anguilla ain't nothing different. I think I'm addicted to
think you leave and fight. Stayed on your conscience over the key. Your eyes skim surface too
living in some times that's the craziest. They say these legislators are the laziest. Dedicated religious figures have gone atheist. Each and everything must change. There's no escaping this. Go and get the bolt cutters. Open the floodgate. Any relationship I've ever been in was love-hate. They shot my cousin, he died. It wasn't justified. I guess I'll see him if I make it to the other side. The corner deli owner tell me hurry up and buy. If everybody is somebody, tell me who am I? The same figure who came from Anguilla ain't nothing different. I think I'm addicted to pain killer. I'm unpermitted to enter the village of Shangri-La. I'm depicted as being the killer, the dangerous, huh?
We're not allowed to have a voice. We ain't allowed to think. You feel me? But I'm a whole human being. You feel me? It's like I could break somebody down using violence or my mind. I'm a whole human being. I bleed, I think, I feel. Just like a white kid. I have a dream. My 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged.
And I think it's great for this man. I would look at it differently. That he has a, he has a taste in women. He likes women. He comments about women pretty, or etc. etc. I think that's lovely.
It's a bad role model for boys and girls. Boys think this is okay, and girls think that they're not worth anything.
And I think on both sides, on the Republicans and the Democrats, the response has been, yes, but let me explain it to you. Let me justify it for you. And I think what we have to do is just say, this is wrong.
I have a huge question mark on how mass media is treating us as candidates, as society.
So it's not going to be a big force of new legislation that everybody's going to dislike. It has to get through both houses of Congress.
I think he's doing this because he really does love this country and saw that it was going in a bad direction.
And I pray every day that Donald Trump will do the right thing. That's all I can do at this point.
Most of us have heard about the wage gap between men and women in the United States. But did you know that on average, women make about 79 cents for every dollar that a man makes? So basically, they're being paid less for doing the same amount of work. Imagine you are a woman and you're running a marathon. You and the man next to you cross the finish line at the exact same time, yet he gets the gold and you get the bronze. Would it be fair if you both did the same amount of work and finished at the same time but didn't get rewarded the same? Now, what if I told you that man could also be a woman? Looking deeper into the issue of wages, we can see that Latino women make even less than the other women in the United States. Compared to Latino men, 60% of Latino women completed their 4-year degree. But looking at the 2 years associate's degrees, more Latino women graduated with the associate's degree at 62% compared to men. That's not a drastic difference, but that 2% makes a difference in the wage gap between women. Many Hispanic women settle for a 2-year degree if they have the opportunity to go to college. So this whole time while I was doing these kind of jobs, I was working towards my sonography degree, which is doing ultrasounds and sonograms. And then also I just finished and I graduated from my medical assistance, and I'm certified on medical assistant. And so that was my goal, but I haven't finished my sonography program yet. I'm going back to finish that, which is a 2-year program at Montgomery County. Maybe the other challenges was not having a degree. I did graduate from a high school here, so I did have a diploma, but also like a lot of places, because I always liked the medical field, so they ask you have to be certain years, experience in this kind of field to be, you have to have this kind of degree, you have to have this certification, and in order to get that, you have to go to school. I have paid for my own classes. I had to work, take care of my child, and then on top of that, finish school.
Degree for a woman to match the wages of a man. So for example, a woman with a master's degree on average will earn as much as a man with a bachelor's degree. A woman with a bachelor's degree will earn as much as a man with a high school diploma. Now part of this is because of the types of jobs that men and women go into. So this is another issue that I work on and that I talk about a lot, the gender wage gap. And one of the responses I often get is, well, these are the choices that women are making. Women are choosing to drop out of the labor force for extended periods of time to raise their kids, or they're choosing to go into lower paid fields. And so we shouldn't be as concerned about, dealing with this through policy, because these are the choices that people are making. They're freely doing this, it's what they want to be doing with their lives. My response to that is, women are oftentimes tracked into these particular types of occupations or into particular types of jobs because they're more likely to offer them the benefits that they need.
When it comes to the education of Hispanic women, some people have been more fortunate than others.
My parents were uneducated and they worked in factories, so therefore I did not have the home support of them being able to help me with my studies. I would have to seek other sources or just teach myself through books. So most of my life it has been through nonfiction, because I needed to learn so many things, and if I didn't get it the first time, I had to figure out how to do it. I was brought up by my grandparents, which is pretty customary because my parents had to work and help the family out. So of course I was my grandfather's treasure, and his favorite line to me was, education is the key. And I grew up with that. I grew up believing that the more education you had, the better off you would be in society. I've been very fortunate in my career, which has all been funded through scholarship.
What if there was a program to assist these women, in this case Latinas? The program would tutor and help with getting these women into college. Create a program that shows how to apply to universities and scholarships so that these women could get the best opportunities possible.
Hello, my name is Sammy. We're in Silver Spring for the Thanksgiving parade. We're asking people why Silver Spring is unique.
It's very diverse, and they embrace that diversity, and they celebrate it. And I've always pretty much stayed in the Silver Spring area because of that.
Silver Spring is one of the most diverse neighborhoods and cities. If you go to school, it's one of the most diverse audiences you'll see.
I'm white. I was from El Salvador.
I'm in Guatemala.
Dominica. Honduras.
My mom is from India. She was born there. Chinese, obviously, and I'm part Russian. On my mom's side of the family, I'm also part white.
Both my parents are from Jamaica, but on my dad's side, he's half Chinese and German.
I'm from Nepal, and my parents are from Nepal.
My mom's Korean.
And my mom's Taiwanese, and our dads are both American and white.
And it's just so interesting to think about how a couple decades ago, my parents and her parents, they couldn't get married, and now we live here in such an accepting community.
It makes me particularly proud that every child gets to experience such wide variety of people from all over the world. The ability to learn from all cultures is one of the most unique parts of this area.
I think that Silver Spring has an environment of inclusion that really makes it special and unique, and I really love living here.
Everybody to me is community focused, and I've admired how the community sticks together and they make things happen.
It's a wonderful community and they do a lot. I'm so grateful to be here.
Have you ever wondered how Silver Spring became what it is today? We did some research, and with the help of Jerry McCoy, we found the place that started it all.
We are in the 1945 Baltimore and Ohio Railroad Station. It's the only building that currently is on the National Register of Historic Places here in downtown Silver Spring. We almost lost this building in 1992 to demolition, but the community banded together, preserved the building. It's just a great landmark structure for this community to learn a greater understanding of this community's past. President Harry S. Truman used to sit in this station for the train coming in from Missouri. So he could pick up his wife Bess and his daughter Margaret. I personally have always considered a train station to be the acorn from which a community grew. Usually it was built in a location that did not have much of a community around it. But once that train station was built, a community would start growing naturally around it. And that's exactly what happened here in Silver Spring when this train station was originally constructed in the 1870s on a piece of property that was donated by Francis Preston Blair, who was the founder of Silver Spring, Maryland. His house was just located a couple hundred yards on the opposite side of the railroad tracks. He was a good businessman back in the 19th century. He knew that if he had a train station literally in the backyard of his property, he would be able to use that to ship his produce to the markets down in Washington, D.C. In the early 20th century, downtown Silver Spring was very sparse. It was a place where the farmers came on Saturday night to have a good time, to cash their checks, to buy goods that they would need for the following week. Silver Spring didn't really take off until the late 1930s after the Depression ended, with construction of the Silver Spring Shopping Center in 1938 and the Silver Theatre, which is now the American Film Institute Theater. So that's how Silver Spring got its start, from this location right here at 8100 Georgia Avenue.
America accounts for only 5% of the global population, but imprisons 25% of the world's inmates. Since 1980, the American prison population has grown from 500,000 to over 2 million, largely due to the war on drugs, an extension of the law and order agenda driven by President Reagan. The war on drugs became a vehicle for racial oppression and resulted in disproportionate incarceration of African Americans. Making up 43% of American prisoners in 2008 and incarcerated at more than 6 times the rate of whites, African Americans face racial bias in the criminal justice system and suffer under drug laws that mandate 30-year to life sentences for nonviolent crimes. These disparities result in disproportionate arrests and sentencing, disband family structure, create unstable homes, contribute to a broadening education gap, and trap many in a cycle of poverty. Today, 1 in 3 African American males are in the criminal justice system, compared to 1 in 7 for white men. To ensure that all Americans have an equal opportunity to live the American dream, reforms must be passed with urgency. There are multiple issues within the criminal justice system that contribute to the mass incarceration epidemic. Law professor Jonathan Turley explained the legal changes that sparked the sudden increase in prison population.
So what we saw was this sort of perfect storm. We saw mandatory minimum sentencing, which increased people's time in jail. We saw the elimination of paroles and pardons. And then finally, we saw a shift in criminal laws where we made more things criminal. There's been an increase in what's called the criminalization of America. More and more things are being turned into criminal matters.
Massive increases in arrests have occurred since Presidents Ronald Reagan and Bill Clinton passed legislation that increased criminalization and created a financial incentive for criminal convictions. Police and authorities over-police poor, urban, and predominantly African American neighborhoods where people lack resources to defend themselves. Reverend Howard John Wesley, recipient of a 2016 NAACP Image Award and the pastor of historic Alfred Street Baptist Church in Alexandria, Virginia, spoke about the impact of economics on police targeting.
A rich young family with wealth that can afford a good lawyer, their son's probably going to get off. A family that has no funds to pay even for bail is going to take a court-appointed lawyer, the son's probably not going to get as good of a chance. And to me, it's a shame when income affects justice. Don't know the right answer to it, but if I could remove something, that would be it. That all would have equal opportunity to be defended in a court of law, regardless of income.
As prison populations swelled due to racial bias in law enforcement, legislation passed during the 80s and 90s linking sentence time for nonviolent drug crimes. Prison management quickly became a lucrative business, and the prison system shifted from a focus of rehabilitation to incarceration.
In the 1980s, there was a radical shift rejecting the concept of rehabilitation in favor of mandatory minimum sentencing and what you can call a warehousing approach. So many prisons that had large areas set aside for education, for drug treatment, for different types of rehabilitative programs were literally ripped out and filled with cots. Even gymnasiums were turned into large areas for housing.
In 1994, President Clinton signed the Violent Crime Control and Law Enforcement Act, a legislation that invested $12.5 billion in the prison system. These funds went toward building more prisons and expanding existing facilities to accommodate the massive increase in prison population. Rehabilitation programs were neglected, contributing to recidivism and a cycle of incarceration.
You have to make society attractive. You have to make me believe that I have ownership of my life again. You have to make me believe that I am a viable part of society. And when you inherently remove economic and employment opportunities as well as my right to vote, you've basically put me in a corner where I'm no longer a human being, so what do I have to fear? In essence, jail is a better life for me. You know, I'm taken care of, I have 3 square meals, I have respect and credibility, as opposed to robbing me of my humanity when I'm back in. So for me, it's about employment, it's about voting.
When African Americans from poor communities enter the prison system, their lives are forever changed. Felons and ex-cons are stripped of their right to vote and lose their rights to public housing, food stamps, and public benefits that are essential to their lives. Once labeled a criminal, they are required to indicate their status as a felon on job applications, yet another barrier to assimilating back into society and leading a productive life. Without a stable home or income, ex-cons turn towards criminal activity in order to sustain themselves, landing them back in prison. While in prison, their absence from the family structure creates unstable homes, increasing the odds that their children will engage in criminal activity and become incarcerated.
For children who have a father who's incarcerated, there's a 40% greater chance that they are in poverty.
The U.S. Dream Academy is the nationwide organization that is working to break this cycle, empowering children of incarcerated parents by providing them with academic enrichment and social values. The story of Darrell Frazier, a college student and graduate of U.S. Dream Academy, is one example of how positive community involvement can help prevent generational incarceration.
ways. That you don't have to settle to be like your mother or your father. You can be better than them. Take all that pain and that anger that you have inside of you, or that frustration that you have, and use that as motivation to keep pushing forward for something positive.
As America prepares for the inauguration of a new president, many are concerned about addressing the disproportionate incarceration of African Americans, as this reality contradicts the American dream. Our request for the new administration is that you focus your efforts on rectifying mistakes in the criminal justice system by addressing 3 issues: targeting and biased enforcement, minimum sentencing laws, and recidivism and generational incarceration.
So I think when we look at sentencing and then look at more rehabilitation programs and funding community organizations, programs that grab onto young men and young women before that recidivist mindset sets in, then we do a much better job.
To remedy these issues, we need enforcement that ensures equal justice under the law, repealing of minimum sentencing laws for nonviolent crimes, and rehabilitation in place of incarceration.
For a fraction of what you pay to incarcerate these folks, you can actually make them productive citizens.
President Trump, you have a chance to unite our divided nation. By protecting the rights of all Americans and promptly addressing the mass incarceration epidemic, we can and will make America great again.
A long time coming, but I know a change gonna come. Oh, yes it will. It's been too hard living, but I'm afraid to die.
Well, I grew up with physical copies of albums, and there was something about getting a new record, getting it home, looking through the liner notes, reading the lyrics. I mean, it was an experience, really.
I can visually look at covers, artists, albums, read the backs, dates, things a lot better than I can on iTunes. I also like having things in hand. I like having something that I own that I can also share that in ways that iTunes can't.
We've had a lot of return customers. I've only been working here a year, but we've been in the neighborhood for about 15 years. And we have customers that have been coming back for the last 15 years. A staple of just something to do in Silver Spring, bringing more and varied business to the area, and being a touch point for really cool music and really interesting and hard to find records.
It's just a nice atmosphere, you know. It's just a cool place, and you know, I'm a musician myself, so it's just nice to be around music. And you know, you got to work, so it's nice to have some music while you're working.
I love this store the best, and I did love this store the best before working here because the prices were amazing, the collections were really picked through. The fact is, if you go into our budget bin, you can find better records than you'll find at a thrift store for cheaper prices in better condition.
The store, they have a good selection of records of all the genres of music, and it's very fairly priced and it's in very good condition, and you know, it's always well stocked. I come here probably at least once a week, and there's always something new for me to check out.
Some stuff is not online still, so you gotta physically get out the house and go get it.
I think part of being in the DC area is, you know, having stores like this, you know, where, you know, you go out and you know, are physically able to look at, you know, records, listen to them.
And it's really nice to be able to go into places like this and take a look. This is history, really.
There's just something intrinsic to finding something you're interested in and finding other people who find it interesting. It builds connections that are really strong.
Once a month, we try to have hip-hop cats come through, producers, beat makers, and they just basically stay in this area back here and just pick records out and just make beats out of them.
The kind of experience you can come in and get a record from somebody who knows what they're listening to, that's a pretty important part of your research in music and your discovery of new things.
I like a lot of the older things. Sometimes iTunes doesn't have it, and they tell you to Google this, Google that, and this place is really unique.
I think you should get into it. I think anybody should get into it. If they love music, they should come to a record store and pick up stuff for $1 that they didn't know that they would like.
It's nice to carry on the tradition, you know what I mean? Like it doesn't have to be a zillion of them, but as long as it's still a couple around.
North Carolina, in the mountains, Asheville, we don't even have anything like this in our area. Most everything is gone. We can't find CDs. Some of the vinyl's coming back now, but we have a lot more of the other places that have gone by the wayside.
Growing up in this area, there used to be probably 5 to 10 different stores just like this. Now there's this store and maybe 2 others in the area, and it's a changing time, obviously.
I hope, I know right now, like, there's like kind of a record trend, like resurgence in interest, for especially the younger generation. I hope it continues. I hope record stores, like, not only do the ones that are available now, like, continue to flourish, but, new ones come up, because I think it's really good in terms of building a vibrant, like, musical community.
Gotta promote.
Gotta do it.
Gotta do it.
How many more mothers, how many more fathers need to shed tears of grief before we do something?
North Carolina Democratic line, you are up first. Your reaction?
Yeah, good morning. Yes, it's a shame what happened the days before this. Fox News later on, the business she said it was probably a terrorist attack.
How many more must die before our Congress takes action?
I cannot begin to fathom the courage that it takes to come down here and tell your stories, to essentially live your grief in real time.
I tell my story in hopes that it will move others to action so that more fathers are not faced with telling a story similar to mine.
Hi, my name is Sebastian Kraft. This is an emergency. The alarm is sounding. The most important issue for President Donald Trump and the Republican Congress, located behind me, to address is gun violence. However, given the Republican Party's opposition to regulation of the gun industry and gun control, there exists only one solution to this issue for the foreseeable future: compromise. While conducting interviews for my project, I showed this film's opening to 2 individuals with 2 very different stances on the gun issue. My goal was to compare their reactions to what was on display in the clip.
How many more must die before our Congress takes action?
I cannot begin to fathom the courage that it takes to come down here.
I can't tell you how often people are like, oh yeah, there was another mass shooting today, wasn't there? They know the line of work that I'm in, and I'm like, oh, in any other country, like who would say, oh, there's another mass shooting today? We're just so numb to it that it's just another mass shooting, and that's really scary to me.
Well, I saw a very emotional anti-gun appeal that I see often with people who blame gun violence on a tool rather than on the perpetrator of the user of the tool.
As I learned through the completion of my documentary, Maryland is very far from united on the gun issue. In fact, much like the rest of the United States, it is very much divided.
There's somewhere between 300 million and 600 million guns in the United States. Over 40% of the households in the United States own at least one firearm. I've grown up with firearms all my life, and I was taught how to use them and how to respect their use.
We support the right of law-abiding citizens to be in possession of a gun. What we believe is there are reasonable limits and restrictions.
I'm going to be trying to take on the NRA and the gun lobby in Washington the way that I did in Annapolis. We passed the toughest gun safety law in the country. We banned military-style assault weapons in a provision that I introduced. We required fingerprint licensing for people purchasing firearms. I do believe that 90% of the people in the country favor a universal background check. And that means the vast majority of gun owners favor it.
Background checks? Universally enforced? That would require extraordinary efficiency. With over 300 million guns already in circulation, as Mark Pennick states,
"You're not going to stop the evil people by taking away their tools. There's simply too many tools out there."
Instead, the President and Congress must seek to restrict the ability of physically or mentally unfit individuals to obtain firearms. To do so, Congress, as well as individual states, must shorten the duration of gun licenses to make them expire and go back up for renewal more quickly.
For Marylanders to Prevent Gun Violence, if you were to ask me what is the one issue I would like to see brought to the national level that's not even being considered right now, it would be licensing. So in Maryland, the handgun license lasts for 10 years. A lot of things happen within 10 years. We're talking about issues of domestic violence and things like that.
Isabel Karayiskos of Amnesty International France explains that the annual number of gun-related homicides in foreign countries such as France pales in comparison with the United States. The following interview is courtesy of Amnesty International France.
Là, les chiffres sont vraiment très parlants. Typiquement, donc, il y a à peu près 300 millions d'armes qui circuleraient aux États-Unis pour 30 000 homicides par balle par an. Et donc, parallèlement, en France, il y a à peu près environ, il y aurait 3 millions d'armes, il y a une centaine d'homicides. Et ça, c'est vraiment valable. On voit les États-Unis, ils sont vraiment en haut de l'échelle sur les homicides par balle.
The Gun Violence Archive indicates that in 2016, there were 322 mass shootings in the United States through October 31st. Some argue that mass shootings are caused by the preservation of gun-free zones.
Gun-free zones that you do impose, like for schools, have them guarded by armed guards. A gun-free zone is an invitation to mayhem by the demented.
However, I do not believe that having more guns entails more safety.
What I know is that a home with a gun in it, it's much more likely that there'll be violence within that home, just the mere presence of a gun.
La présence d'une arme dans un foyer, dans la maison, elle augmente de 41% le risque qu'un membre de la famille ne soit tué. Et chez les femmes, elle augmente de 275%.
Ultimately, the issue of gun safety should not be an exclusively Democratic or Republican issue, for both parties have ample reason to ensure their constituents' safety.
My personal background, I grew up in rural Virginia. I was named after my father's college professor. My sister was named after my father's gunsmith. Like, I grew up in a gun culture. I know that culture. I know that life. But I think that if these guys stood back for a second and just listened to us, they would see that there's room for common ground.
Americans all over the country do not have access to healthcare or cannot afford it. President Obama has attempted to fix this monumental issue affecting people everywhere. However, is his plan enough?
Too often it works fine as long as you stay healthy. It doesn't work well when you're sick. So year after year, Americans were routinely exposed to financial ruin or denied coverage due to minor pre-existing conditions or dropped from coverage altogether, even if they paid their premiums on time.
I think we could improve it by getting more people enrolled. Right now, there's a lot of people who are young, like 18 to 25 and 25 to 35, in that range, who are not enrolled. And if they were, those people generally are young and healthy, right? So if they were, that would help the whole system work better.
Obamacare has provided insurance for thousands of Americans and has worked to provide coverage for those who had been denied previously. For example, if you had not qualified for other healthcare plans due to a pre-existing condition, you are now eligible to receive Obamacare.
In other words, if you have a pre-existing condition, like let's say I have chronic heart condition, let's just say. They used to be able to turn me away because I had a chronic heart condition, but they can't do that now.
Due to this new coverage system, many Americans will now receive affordable health care. However, certain people may not apply. A story on NPR reflects this issue. Dinek, 63, is a self-employed urban planning consultant in Portland, Oregon. He makes too much money to qualify for financial assistance. He's also pretty healthy and doesn't use much medical care. But his premiums have almost tripled in the past 3 years. To him, it's just too much. I am not willing to pay $930 for coverage to pay a $3,000 deductible. Many Americans across the country face this issue. Too rich for help, too poor to pay on their own. Mr. Burns interviewed someone with this issue.
Well, I interviewed a woman who couldn't get insurance coverage because she fell into a very odd place where she couldn't afford to. She made too much money. She and her husband made too much money to afford the subsidies and not enough money to afford the premium. So they struggled. I felt bad for that woman.
However, many Americans also believe that the Affordable Care Act is a good thing and only needs minor reforms.
I think the good things are it gives people access to health care who might not have had access previously. They're able to get some financial assistance to ensure that they're in a better place to get health insurance and their families are covered.
This sentiment is reflected across the country, and for good reason. As bad as it may seem, currently our country lacks a better system to put into place and give millions of Americans relying on the ACA coverage. It also provides significant financial aid to poorer families who struggle to provide basic needs to their families.
I can summarize sort of the two views that the country's very, very, very divided here. There's poll after poll after poll showing that this is just, some people love it, and actually some people don't love it. Some people like it, not a lot love it, and some people really hate it.
But when the ACA has so many prominent problems, is it better to get rid of it and create a new system? Under Trump's presidency, many Americans are unsure about what their health care will be like. Trump has stated that he will abolish Obamacare, and so many people have gone to renegotiate their plans. We talked to Sue Williams, who went to a center in Silver Spring, Maryland, to do this.
Unfortunately, because of my schedule, I wasn't able to go to do it until the very last day of the enrollment. So, unfortunately, I was with so many other people that the room was packed, and it took about 7 hours.
Trump has said he wants to tear it up, throw it out, and repeal it as quickly as possible. He even called for a special session of Congress. We weren't quite sure what he meant by that, since Congress is going to be in session anyway. Trump has given some main ideas about what he would do instead, but we do not have a detailed, deep plan of what it would really like, what it would look like.
Some negative aspects of the Affordable Care Act. Well, it's pretty expensive, and in order to keep the price down, they have, a lot of health plans have instituted high deductibles. So when you go for any services, you go to the doctor, you go to the pharmacy, you go to the hospital, you have to pay a lot before you even get any services. And that hurts, that makes it difficult for patients and consumers, because sometimes they can't afford those out-of-pocket expenses at the point of care.
The affordability issue is real. The increases in premiums are real. There are problems. If you had the political will, you could sit down and try to figure something out, or you know, the Democrats get this, the Republicans get that, but as you know, you've noticed, we're not exactly in a deeply cooperative mood right now as a country. It's pretty divided, and that is one reason people get so excited and upset about the Affordable Care Act. Is it really says a lot about what do you believe about government? What is the government's role? Should the federal government be this involved in health care? Should the states? Should the market do it? Should nobody do it? These are really profound philosophical questions about the role of government that go smack into how do we feel about health policy.
The percentage of Americans who are uninsured
has dropped from 22%, 22.7, so almost 23% of Americans were uninsured in 2013 to now it's only 14%. No, it's 10% now, and the government said it was down as low as 8. So that's the lowest it's ever been. The headline on Vox.com, for the first time ever, Americans' uninsured rate has fallen below 9%. So as long as I've been covering healthcare, which is since 1991, I've never seen a rate that low.
Although there are many different views across the country and about this issue, one thing is absolute. The Affordable Care Act needs to be reformed in some way, and is unacceptable as it is. Washington and our presidential-elect must focus on this issue. This is a problem that will affect hundreds of thousands of Americans all across the country. You need to ask yourselves this question: how will you, as leader of our country, provide accessible, affordable, and widespread healthcare to the public? How will you satisfy the needs of these people? And how will you do this in a way that is economically aware? This is a question that the country needs an answer to, and you need to answer it. After all, the most important aspect of a nation is its people.